He was a mafia boss with a heart buried in darkness. She was the enemy's sister, the only woman he ever desired. Their love was forbidden, dangerous, and fueled by revenge. On their wedding day, bullets flew, loyalties shattered, and secrets threatened to destroy them. But nothing could prepare him for the call that would change everything. His ex, abandoned in a hospital, and their child, fighting for life. How far would he go to save the only family he ever truly loved? Before we dive into this world of love, betrayal, and deadly secrets, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a single twist, a single betrayal, or the shocking secrets that will unfold in this mafia romance. Trust me, this is one story you'll feel in your heart and your soul. So stay with us till the very last chapter. The city never slept. Lights shimmered off the glass towers like 1,000 cold eyes watching, waiting. From the balcony of his penthouse, Nikolai Varenne stared down at New York, a king over a kingdom he no longer wanted, a kingdom built on blood, betrayal, and shattered lives. He was young, handsome. White-haired rumors whispered about his eyes, gray as steel, cold as winter, dangerous, untouchable, a mafia boss who had taken everything, and yet he wanted nothing. A cigarette burned between his fingers. Smoke curled into the morning haze. He took a long drag and let the silence stretch. For years he had danced on the edge of death, always one step ahead. And now, for the first time, he felt the pull to stop, to disappear, to vanish completely. No calls, no threats, no empire. Just him, and the quiet he had been craving. But a man like Nikolai never escapes shadows so easily. His phone buzzed, a number he didn't recognize. He ignored it. Buzz, again, insistent, sharp, relentless. Finally, he picked up. The voice on the other end was trembling, weak, scared. He barely recognized it at first. Nikolai, she's alone, in the hospital, with your baby. The world stopped. She, Elena. His chest tightened. A memory clawed its way out from years ago, sharp and cruel. The way her hair had fallen across her face, the way she had looked at him with trust, with love, a love he had taken, twisted, and betrayed. And now, a child. He dropped the cigarette. It rolled across the balcony floor and fell into the abyss below, disappearing into the city that had always fed his hunger for control. Nikolai ran his hands through his hair. Anger, guilt, fear, rage. All wrapped in one impossible knot. He had wanted to leave, to erase his name, to disappear forever. But this call changed everything. He had never been a man who ran from responsibility, and now there was no running. Every step he had taken to vanish, every fake death planned, every burner phone, every escape route, suddenly seemed meaningless, because the woman he had loved, the woman he had used, was in danger, and there was a child involved. He slid down the wall of the balcony until he was sitting, staring at the city below, feeling the cold bite of reality. Every ally, every enemy, every whispered secret in the underworld would suddenly matter again. Because blood called for blood, and family. Family could never be ignored. His mind raced. How long had she been alone? How sick was the baby? Could she even survive? Questions crashed into each other, relentless and impossible to answer. Nikolai clenched his fists. He remembered the nights he had spent with her. Stolen kisses, whispered promises, the way her laugh had softened his darkest thoughts. He had loved her, but he had also wanted revenge. He had thought using her heart as a weapon against her family was worth the cost. Now, the cost had come back to him. He stood abruptly, pacing the balcony like a predator trapped in a cage. The city stretched endlessly beneath him, a world of concrete and glass, but it felt smaller than it had ever felt before. Because there was something more precious than power. Something he had never considered could outweigh revenge. She, the baby, their fragile, fragile bond, broken, yet somehow still alive. He grabbed his coat, his guns, the list of enemies who thought they owned him. They wouldn't matter. Not now. He would make them matter later. First he had to reach her. First he had to see her. First he had to fix what he had shattered. The elevator descended like a coffin. Each floor passed in a blur, and with every level, the tension inside him grew. Nikolai's car roared to life, tires screeching as he cut through the streets. Neon lights reflected off the wet asphalt like fragments of a city that had always known darkness. But now, for him, even darkness had color. His phone buzzed again. Another message, this time just a location and a time. A hospital, her hospital. His grip tightened. He remembered the last time he had touched her, the way she had looked at him. Betrayal, confusion, love. A storm of emotions that had left them both bleeding, figuratively and literally. The city blurred past him as he drove. Every red light, every honking horn, every shouting passerby faded into insignificance. There was only her, and the child he had never expected to have. Nikolai's mind was a battlefield of plans, strategies, and regrets. Every move he had ever made flashed before his eyes, and yet nothing had prepared him for this. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about survival, power, or fear. He was thinking about love, pure, terrifying, unrelenting love. The streets narrowed. The hospital loomed ahead, stark white against the gray morning sky. He parked, heart pounding, gun in his pocket, adrenaline coursing through every vein. He stepped out, each movement deliberate, calculated, controlled. And then he saw the lights in the room. The door was slightly ajar, a figure inside, small, fragile, and she looked up, her eyes wide, recognizing, and filled with something he hadn't expected. Fear, yes, but also hope. She whispered a name, his name. Nikolai's chest tightened. His entire world had narrowed down to that moment. Elena. The city, the underworld, the blood, none of it mattered anymore. He had wanted to disappear forever. But the second he saw her, he knew he could never leave. As he stepped closer, a shadow moved behind her hospital bed. A hand clamped over her mouth, and a chilling voice whispered, "He doesn't know who he's really walking into." Elena Russo sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her hands pressed to her stomach, her fingers trembling. The room smelled of antiseptic, of cold metal and disinfectant. Her eyes, the kind that had once sparkled with mischief and life, were hollow now. Fatigue and fear had carved deep lines into her young face. At 24, she should have been laughing, dancing, living. Instead, she counted heartbeats, hers, the baby's, the invisible countdown to some inevitable end. Outside, the city roared as always, indifferent to the pain in this quiet, sterile room. She listened to the distant sirens and the muted cries of other patients. Alone. That word echoed in her mind. Alone. Abandoned. She had never imagined that love could betray her like this, that life could twist so cruelly. The truth burned brighter than the fluorescent lights overhead. Nikolai Varenne. The name alone made her pulse tighten, made her body remember things she had tried to bury. He had been every storm she had ever chased. White, flawless, dangerous, and utterly intoxicating. He had entered her life like fire, consuming everything in his path, and she had loved him with a reckless abandon she would never admit, even to herself. She traced her fingers along the hospital blanket, imagining that perhaps he would appear at the door, that perhaps, against all reason, he hadn't abandoned her completely. But she had heard the rumors the whispers in the underworld. She'd seen the emptiness in his eyes during their last moments together, and she knew he had chosen revenge over her. A sharp knock at the door startled her. She flinched, her heart hammering. But it wasn't him, not yet. Just a nurse, with polite eyes and careful steps, checking vitals. "How are you feeling, Miss Russo?" the woman asked. But Elena only shook her head, too exhausted to speak. She didn't want pity. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted him. And yet, as the door clicked softly behind the nurse, a memory surged. A night months ago, dark and storm-laden, when the world had seemed smaller, more intimate and terrifyingly beautiful. Nikolai had stood in the shadows of the penthouse, his coat brushing against the floor, his eyes like steel cutting through her defenses. She remembered how she had trembled, not from fear but from desire, the way his presence could dominate a room without a word, the way she had loved him, even when she knew she shouldn't. He had told her once, his voice low and controlled, "You belong to me now." She had smiled, defiant yet trembling. "No, I belong to no one." And yet, even as she said it, she had known it wasn't true. Not for him. Not for him. Elena's lips quivered at the memory, at the echo of that dangerous intimacy. Their love had been a twisted dance, dark, irresistible, and built on secrets. She had known every night they shared was borrowed time. Every stolen kiss, every whispered promise had been layered with danger. And now, sitting alone in this hospital room, she understood the cost. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of wheels scraping against tile. A cart. Another nurse, perhaps. She turned quickly, eyes alert. But the cart was empty, except for a small bundle of blankets. And then she saw it, the tiny, fragile shape inside. A baby. Her baby. His child. She reached out instinctively, and tears stung her eyes. The baby stirred, a small hand curling over hers, and for the first time in months, a flicker of hope sparked. She whispered softly, "I'll protect you. I promise." Her voice cracked. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run, but she stayed rooted, as if the strength she felt in that tiny heartbeat could shield her from everything else. Her thoughts swirled back to Nikolai. What had driven him away? Was it revenge, pride, fear? Did he even care that she had survived? That their child had survived? She couldn't stop imagining him walking through that door, gray eyes blazing, lips curved into that dangerous smirk she had once loved and cursed. The memory of their last fight surged. Harsh words, bitter truths, a betrayal that had cut deeper than any blade. He had walked away when she needed him most, leaving her alone with a secret that would have destroyed him had he known. She had loved him, trusted him, and he had abandoned her when she was most vulnerable. And yet, she still ached for him. Pain, longing, and fury collided inside her chest. She pressed her hand harder against her belly, feeling the tiny kick of life inside. This child was their connection, a fragile bridge between a past filled with darkness and a future she wasn't sure she deserved. She whispered again, almost to herself, "Come back to me. Come back before it's too late." Suddenly, the door creaked again, this time slowly. A shadow fell across the floor. Elena froze, her breath catching in her throat. The silhouette was unmistakable. Tall, broad, dangerous. Her heart leaped, then froze. He stepped inside, every step measured, every motion controlled. Nikolai Varen, the man who had destroyed her, the man she had loved more than anyone else in her life, stood before her. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something she hadn't expected. Not the cold, merciless predator she had known, not the man who had betrayed her, but something softer. Guilt. Fear. Regret. "Elena," he said, his voice low, deliberate, each syllable weighted with emotion. I'm here." Her heart screamed, wanted to believe him, wanted to hate him. wanted to push him away and pull him close all at once. She pressed herself back against the headboard, trembling. He took a careful step forward. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered, "but I can't leave you. Not now, not ever." Elena's mind raced. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to cry into his chest. But she didn't trust herself. She didn't trust him. And yet the sight of him standing there, so alive, so real, ignited something inside her she thought had died long ago. The baby stirred again, tiny fingers clutching at the blanket. She watched Nikolai's face soften as he looked at the child, and in that moment she realized something she hadn't allowed herself to believe. He cared, perhaps more than she had ever dared to hope. Her eyes narrowed, searching for deception, for lies, but his gaze held truth. Painful, complicated truth. Before she could speak, a sound at the door startled them both. A faint shuffle, a creak, a whisper. Her blood ran cold. A new presence, unseen yet chillingly close. Elena's breath caught. Nikolai stiffened, and then a voice, low and menacing, barely audible, yet sharp enough to cut through the tension like a knife. "Thought you could hide from me, Elena? From him? From everything?" Elena and Nikolai froze, hearts pounding. Shadows shifted near the doorway. Danger had arrived. And this time, it wasn't from the past. It was from now. The chapel was a cathedral of tension, the air thick with incense and dread. Candles flickered along the aisle, casting shadows that danced like ghosts of the past. Every polished wooden pew seemed to hold whispers of betrayal and longing, echoing the dark undercurrents running through New York's underworld. Today was supposed to be a union, a celebration. Instead, it felt like a battlefield waiting to erupt. Elena stood at the altar, trembling yet radiant. The white of her dress clung to her like armor, soft and delicate, yet unyielding against the storm outside and within her heart. Her eyes scanned the room, noting every man who watched them, every silent tension in the air. And then he appeared. Nikolai Varenne, tall, impeccably dressed, his coat sweeping the floor, his gray eyes glinting with control and danger. He moved with purpose, every step echoing the weight of a man who had faced death more times than anyone could count. Elena's pulse spiked. Even now, surrounded by opulence and expected ceremony, he radiated threat, power, and the dark allure she had never truly escaped. As he approached, the music swelled. Soft notes of a violin seemed to clash with the tension crackling in the air. Elena swallowed hard. She knew the world had tilted. Nothing would ever be normal again. Not with him. Not with her brother lurking somewhere in the shadows, waiting to strike. The ceremony began, officiated by a priest whose voice seemed drowned by the tension. Words of love and commitment, vows meant to bind two hearts together, barely penetrated the storm swirling between them. Then it happened. A gunshot shattered the fragile calm. The stained glass trembled as if trembling in fear, and Elena gasped. Panic erupted around them. Guests screamed, diving behind pews. Smoke coiled in the air. Alexander Russo had arrived, her brother. His fury more lethal than any weapon he carried. His eyes locked onto Elena, then Nikolai with a hatred so intense it could have burned through stone. "You will never touch her," Alexander roared, stepping into the aisle. "Not with your lies, not with your games. She is mine, and she always will be." Nikolai's expression did not waver. Calm, cold, and impossibly precise, he stepped forward, placing himself between Elena and her brother. Every muscle in his body was coiled, ready. He didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. He had fought for her before, for moments like this, and he would do it again. "You are late," Nikolai said, his voice like steel. "She's mine. This is done." Alexander charged. The first punch landed, echoing through the cathedral like a gunshot. Nikolai's reflexes were deadly, fluid. He moved like water around a rock. avoiding, striking, countering with lethal precision. Every hit, every move, calculated to protect Elena while maintaining dominance over his foe. Elena's heart raced. Her body wanted to move, to intervene, to scream, but she stayed rooted, torn between fear and the dark thrill she had always felt around Nikolai. He had been her storm, her danger, and now he was shielding her from the chaos he had once caused. Glass shattered under a thrown chair. Candles fell, smoke rising like spirits of the past, illuminating the violent dance below. Guests scattered, their screams blending with the storm of rain outside. The sound of fists, leather, and bone striking each other created a rhythm of destruction. Nikolai caught Alexander mid-lunge, twisting him to the floor with a brutal grace. Alexander spat blood, rage undiminished. "You think this ends with me?" he hissed. "I will destroy you both." Nikolai's jaw tightened. He grabbed Elena's hand, pulling her close. "It ends with us, right now, together." His eyes softened briefly, just enough for Elena to see the man beneath the monster, the one who had once loved her, tormented her, and been her undoing. Elena's breath caught. The fire in her chest flared, the dark romance of their past blending with the terrifying present. She realized she had never felt more alive, more terrified, or more connected. He was her protector, her danger, her obsession, and she had never stopped loving him. Alexander rose again, bloodied but unbroken. Nikolai met him head-on. Every move, every strike was a testament to years of training, revenge, and survival. The chapel became a battlefield. Candles snuffed out, furniture overturned, echoes of violence reverberating against the stone walls. Through it all, Nikolai never let go of Elena's hand. He didn't just fight for her. He fought with her, silently, wordlessly, as though the bond they shared transcended every strike, every threat. Finally, with a last calculated blow, Nikolai sent Alexander crashing to the floor, groaning and defeated for now. He turned to Elena, gray eyes softening ever so slightly, haunted by what they had endured and the war that was far from over. The priest's voice trembled, trying to resume the ceremony, but Elena and Nikolai didn't hear him. The chaos had passed, but the air between them still crackled with fire, desire, and unspoken truths. Nikolai drew closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No one will touch you again," he whispered almost inaudibly. "Not him, not anyone, I promise." Elena's lips parted, torn between defiance and surrender. She wanted to hate him, to fear him, to retreat into the safety of her brother's shadow, and yet she couldn't. She never could. The rain outside pounded harder, drumming against the stained glass like the heartbeat of a city alive with secrets, violence, and love that could not be tamed. And then a loud metallic click echoed from the entrance. A shadow moved faster than humanly possible, approaching silently. Nikolai's hand went instinctively to Elena's, gripping tight. A cold voice, low and dangerous, whispered from the darkness. "You think this is over, Varun? You think she's safe? Think again." The chapel trembled as another figure emerged from the shadows, unseen and deadly. Nikolai tightened his grip on Elena's hand. The storm wasn't over, not by a long shot, and this time the danger threatened everything they had fought for. The penthouse was silent, but the silence was heavy, suffocating. The city hummed far below, oblivious to the storm brewing within these walls. Rain streaked the windows, painting the glass with gray and silver, blurring the skyline like a world caught between reality and nightmare. Elena Russo sat on the edge of the black leather couch, her wedding dress folded beside her. She had changed into simpler clothes, but the tension of the day still clung to her like a second skin. Her eyes, wide and unsteady, traced the room, the shadows, the faint reflections of herself in the polished surfaces. She was supposed to feel relief, triumph, even happiness, but instead there was only the weight of uncertainty pressing on her chest. Nikolai Varin stood by the window, coat draped over one arm, hands clasped behind his back. He had removed the wedding suit, but the aura of danger around him hadn't diminished. The gray of his eyes reflected the storm outside, turbulent, relentless. He watched the city like a man surveying his battlefield, calculating, strategizing, always 2 steps ahead. He didn't speak at first. Neither of them did. Silence stretched between them like a taut rope, fraying at the edges. Finally, Elena broke it. "It's quiet," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Too quiet. Nikolai's lips curved, not quite a smile. "The quiet is the dangerous part," he said. "It's the calm before everything erupts again, and something always erupts." She swallowed hard. She remembered the chapel, the fight, the shattered glass, the terror. The violent echoes of her brother's rage still lingered in her mind, and yet, in that chaos, she had seen something in him. Protection, devotion, something that had almost resembled love. "Do you ever stop?" she asked, eyes meeting his. "Do you ever stop planning? Fighting, watching, or are you always like this?" He turned to her slowly, gray eyes piercing, unreadable. "I stop only when I must, and right now I must be here, with you, protecting you, for now." Her lips quivered. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, to scream at him for everything he had done. And yet, part of her wanted to crawl into his arms, to feel the dark, dangerous warmth she had always craved. Nikolai stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. He didn't touch her yet, but she could feel the pull, the unspoken promise of dominance and protection. A storm of emotion churned in her chest, fear, longing, confusion, and a deep, undeniable desire. "You know this isn't over," he murmured. "Your brother, the men outside, they won't rest, and neither will I." She looked at him, heart pounding. "Neither will you?" "No," he said, voice low, firm. "Not when it comes to you." The room seemed smaller suddenly, the walls closing in. Her mind raced. She was newly married, yet nothing felt safe. The dark romance of their past, the dangerous intimacy they had shared, surged back in waves. She remembered the nights he had dominated her attention, the moments she had surrendered to him despite knowing the cost. The memories were sharp, intoxicating, and terrifying. Nikolai's eyes softened just a fraction as he studied her. "You have to trust me," he said, almost pleading, though his pride would never allow it to sound like that. "I won't let them touch you. Not now. Not ever." Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to, more than anything. But the betrayal she had endured before the wedding still festered like a hidden wound. How could she trust a man who had once used her heart as a weapon against her? A loud thud echoed from the floor below. Both of them froze. Nikolai's hand shot to the pistol at his hip, instinct sharp and deadly. Elena's breath hitched. She had learned to fear that sound. The sound of footsteps that didn't belong, of shadows moving silently with intent. He didn't speak, just moved toward the door with a predator's grace, every muscle tense, every sense on alert. Elena followed, unable to tear her eyes away from him, heart hammering in her chest. She could feel the storm within him, coiled and ready to strike at anything that threatened them. The penthouse lights flickered, as if warning them. Shadows danced along the walls. Rain pelted the windows harder, a relentless drumbeat. A soft click sounded from the hallway, the unmistakable sound of a lock being tampered with. Nikolai crouched, pressing Elena behind him, shielding her as he reached for the nearest vantage point. Every instinct screamed danger. Elena's hand trembled as she clutched his coat. What is it?" she whispered. His eyes didn't leave the hallway. "Trouble," he said, voice a dangerous whisper. "And it's closer than we think." Time slowed. The seconds stretched, every heartbeat amplified in the quiet tension. Elena's mind raced, threats, betrayal, the past and future colliding in an impossible blur. Then, movement. A shadow detached itself from the wall, quick, deliberate, silent. Nikolai's pistol was up in a heartbeat. The figure emerged from the darkness. Someone neither of them had expected, someone whose presence spelled danger, secrets, and chaos. Elena gasped, a cold shiver running down her spine. She wanted to run, to hide, but her legs refused. She was rooted to the spot, caught between fear and the magnetic pull of Nikolai's presence. The intruder stepped forward, the dim light revealing a face that made her blood run cold. A merciless smile curved across their lips, knowing, calculated. Nikolai's eyes narrowed. Every inch of him radiated lethal focus. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. The figure laughed softly, a sound that promised destruction and secrets yet to be revealed. "I always come where I'm needed," they said. "And believe me, Nikolai, you're going to need every ounce of your strength tonight." Elena's stomach churned. She looked at him, gray eyes hard, unyielding, dangerous. "Who is it?" she whispered, barely audible. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped in front of her, a wall of steel and control, ready to face whatever storm had arrived. Rain pounded harder against the windows, the city outside unaware of the danger inside. The quiet, that dangerous, deceptive quiet, was over. The storm had begun. The figure moved faster, almost impossibly aiming for them. Nikolai's pistol fired, the sound deafening. Elena's eyes widened as a shadow lunged, and then a scream echoed through the penthouse, a scream that would change everything. The night was thick with fog, the city below swallowed in a haze that blurred reality and shadows. The penthouse, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Elena Russo moved silently, her steps measured, her mind a storm of fear, confusion, and exhaustion. Her fingers brushed her stomach instinctively, feeling the new, fragile life growing inside her. 4 months. 4 months of hope and terror intertwined. She had trusted him. Nikolai Varenne, the man who had consumed her thoughts and haunted her dreams, the man who had fought battles, crossed lines, and held power like no other. She had trusted him with her heart, and now she questioned everything. Nikolai sat at the edge of the couch, shadows slicing across his chiseled features. He seemed calm, almost impossibly so. Yet the weight of unspoken words and secrets hung between them, suffocating. Elena could see the lines of tension in his jaw, the storm behind his gray eyes, the way his hands twitched slightly. Ready for action, ready for the underworld to strike at any moment. She approached him cautiously. "You left me," she said, voice tight, trembling but restrained. "When I needed you the most, when I needed your protection, you left." He didn't flinch. His eyes met hers, sharp, calculating, unreadable. "I did what I had to do," he said. "You don't understand what I was facing." Her chest tightened. "I understand perfectly. You chose your revenge over me, over our child." For a moment, his expression faltered, just for the tiniest heartbeat. Then the mask returned, cold, unyielding, dominant. Nikolai leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You don't know everything," he said, voice low, deliberate. "You never will. And maybe it's better that way." Elena's heart pounded. Better that way. Was this a man she had once loved, or a stranger cloaked in darkness controlling her life and tearing her trust apart? She turned away, pacing the length of the room, gripping the edge of the table. The rain outside slammed against the windows, relentless, drumming a rhythm of chaos she could feel in her chest. She had imagined this night countless times. A reunion, a confrontation, the moment he would reveal himself, admit the truth. Instead, she felt betrayal twisting in her stomach like a knife. "You betrayed me," she said, voice breaking. "And now I'm supposed to believe you care?" Nikolai rose slowly, every movement precise, magnetic, dangerous. He approached her, but not threateningly. Yet the aura around him was so powerful it made her instinctively step back. His presence alone demanded attention, obedience, surrender. "Elena," he said, soft, almost unbearably so. "I did what I had to do to protect you, to protect the baby. Everything I did was for you. Even leaving." Her laugh was bitter, hollow. "Protect me? Protect us? You abandoned me. You left me alone in this city, alone in a hospital, carrying our child." He stopped, only a breath away now. The gray of his eyes softened slightly, shadows flickering across his face. "I didn't abandon you," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "I ensured your safety in a way you wouldn't understand. Until now." Her stomach twisted. The baby stirred. She looked down instinctively, fingers curling over the small bump that was their shared connection, the proof of their love and the embodiment of everything they had endured. I don't know if I can forgive you," she whispered. Nikolai's jaw clenched. His eyes burned with intensity, the kind of heat that had once made her ache, made her surrender. He reached out, almost hesitating, his fingers brushing hers. "You don't have to forgive me yet," he said, "but you'll see. The truth will change everything. I promise you that." Before Elena could respond, a knock sounded at the door. It was soft, almost casual, but in the silence, it was deafening. They both froze, instinct taking over. Every nerve in Nikolai's body tightened. Every instinct screaming danger. Another knock, sharper this time, a voice unfamiliar rasped through the door. "Open up now or she dies." Elena's blood ran cold. She looked at Nikolai, eyes wide. Who is it?" He didn't answer. Instead, he moved like liquid, fluid, a predator in motion. He positioned himself between Elena and the door, every muscle coiled. "Stay behind me," he said, voice a low command. She obeyed instantly. There was no hesitation. She had learned the danger of underestimating him, and perhaps in this moment she finally understood the depth of what she had once feared and what she had once loved. The door rattled violently, the intruder forcing it against its frame. Rain lashed against the windows, the storm outside now matching the storm inside. Elena's heart thundered. She could feel the baby kick sharply, a small, defiant heartbeat amidst the chaos. Nikolai's hand went to his gun, eyes scanning, calculating. He didn't flinch, didn't panic. Everything around him seemed to slow. Every shadow, every sound, every breath became precise, deliberate. He was ready, always ready. The intruder's voice cut through the tension again. "I know he's here, I know she's here, and I know you won't survive this night." Elena's pulse raced. Fear, anger, and the remnants of her forbidden love surged inside her. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run, but she couldn't. Nikolai's presence anchored her, even as betrayal and danger swirled around them. He stepped closer to the door, gun leveled, his gray eyes cold, unyielding. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. A silence fell, heavy, suffocating, broken only by the relentless rain outside. Then the intruder moved, fast, almost impossibly fast. A shadow lunged at the door, striking it with force enough to splinter wood. Nikolai's hand fired, the crack of the shot echoing like thunder through the apartment. Elena ducked instinctively, heart in her throat, and then she heard it. A scream that was both familiar and horrifying, a sound that would haunt her forever. Elena's eyes shot to the hallway just in time to see a figure collapse to the floor, blood spreading across the pristine carpet. Nikolai's face, normally unreadable, tightened in fury. The danger had escalated. The betrayal she had feared was only the beginning, and now survival was a battle they couldn't ignore. The streets of New York were alive with chaos. But to Nikolai Varen, the world had narrowed down to one singular purpose: Elena. His chest tightened as he drove through the rain-slicked avenues, headlights cutting through the mist. Every shadow seemed a threat, every honk a potential trap. Yet nothing could slow him, not bullets, not fear, not the ghosts of his past. The call had come hours ago. Elena had been found, abandoned in a hospital under mysterious circumstances, and their child was in danger. His mind raced with questions, with every worst-case scenario spinning in relentless loops. But the drive, the intensity of his need to protect her, drowned everything else out. He reached the hospital, tires screeching on the wet pavement, and didn't even wait for the valet or security. He ran, coat billowing behind him, eyes scanning every shadow, every corridor, every movement that could threaten her. The emergency wing smelled of antiseptic, fear and urgency. Nurses and doctors bustled about, their faces masks of concern and exhaustion. But Nikolai's attention ignored all of it. He moved with precision, a predator seeking its prey. Then he saw her. Elena Russo. Pale but alive, cradling their child, whose tiny chest rose and fell in fragile rhythm. Relief surged through him, a flood of emotion so intense he almost faltered. Almost. But the danger was not over. He approached, careful not to startle her, though his presence alone seemed enough to make the room pulse with tension. "Elena," he breathed, low and controlled, the word carrying everything: fear, regret, desire, and an unspoken promise. Her eyes widened, a mixture of fear, anger, and relief washing over her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. She simply stared, the weight of what had happened pressing down on them both. He crouched near her, maintaining a careful distance, as if any sudden move could ignite another storm. "Are you hurt?" His voice was sharp, precise, but underneath, a current of raw emotion threatened to break free. Elena shook her head. "I'm fine, but they—" Her gaze flickered to the shadows outside the hospital room. Someone was here, someone dangerous. Nikolai's jaw tightened. "I know," he said, "and I'll deal with them. I'll make sure nothing touches you again." The baby stirred in her arms, and Nikolai's eyes softened for the first time in hours. He leaned slightly closer, studying the fragile life they had created together. "Our child," he whispered, voice almost breaking. "We have to protect them, no matter what." Elena's fingers trembled as she brushed a stray lock of hair from her child's forehead. The moment was fragile, intimate, and yet charged with unspoken tension. She looked up at Nikolai, seeing not just the predator, the Mafia boss, the man who had hurt her, but the father of her child, the man capable of love if only he chose to show it. But the reprieve was brief. A sound echoed through the corridor. Hurried footsteps, the clatter of a gunmetal object. Nikolai's body tensed instantly. "Stay behind me," he commanded, a low growl threading through his words. Elena's pulse raced, heart hammering against her ribs. She clutched the baby tighter, instinctively following his instructions. The room seemed smaller, the walls pressing in as shadows moved, dark and threatening. Nikolai stepped forward, senses honed, eyes scanning every corner, every darkened hallway. His movements were silent, precise, lethal. Every step carried the weight of a man who had survived countless ambushes, countless betrayals, and he would survive this one too. The figure emerged from the shadows, fast, deliberate, silent. The intruder's eyes glinted with malice, and Nikolai's instincts flared. Without hesitation, he drew his pistol, aim steady, gaze locked. The intruder lunged. Time slowed. Nikolai fired, the crack of the shot echoing off the walls. The figure went down, but another immediately replaced them. One after another they came, shadows in human form, relentless, calculated. Elena's breath caught. She watched in terror and fascination, helpless yet unable to look away. Nikolai moved like a storm, every shot, every dodge, every movement a perfect combination of precision and fury. He was protecting them, yes, but he was also performing a dangerous, almost ritualistic dance, one she had witnessed before and never fully understood. He returned her gaze for a fleeting moment, gray eyes meeting hers. "Hold them close," he commanded. "Do not move. Do not let them see fear." She obeyed instantly, feeling the gravity of the situation pressing down like steel. Her pulse synced with the baby's heartbeat, both fragile yet resilient. The quiet moments of their past, the stolen touches, the whispered words, the dark intimacy, seemed to crash into the present, fierce and overwhelming. Nikolai's movements became faster, sharper, more brutal. The intruders had underestimated him. They hadn't accounted for his fury, for the stakes, for the man who would die before letting harm touch the woman and child he had once abandoned. Finally, a moment of reprieve. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The room seemed to breathe again, but Nikolai's gaze never wavered. His hand rested on the pistol, gray eyes scanning, analyzing, ensuring no threat remained. Elena exhaled slowly, trembling. "Is it over?" she whispered. He shook his head slightly. "Not even close," he said. "This is just the beginning. But for now, you and the baby are safe. I promise." She looked at him, torn between relief, fear, and a deep, unspoken longing. Their dark past, their dangerous love, the betrayals, the near-death moments, all collided in that single charged glance. She wanted to speak, to reach out, to forgive, but words failed her. Outside the window, rain continued to fall, relentless and indifferent, mirroring the chaos of their lives. The storm had passed temporarily, but the war was far from over. Suddenly, a muffled sound reached their ears, a phone vibrating on a nearby counter. Nikolai glanced at it. A text, from an unknown number. He read it silently, face hardening instantly. The words were simple, but their meaning was deadly. "You think she's safe? Think again. The truth is coming, and it will destroy everything." Nikolai's fist clenched. He turned toward Elena, gray eyes blazing. The calm of the moment shattered completely. The danger wasn't over. It had only grown sharper, closer, and more personal than ever. And the secret they had been running from was about to reveal itself, threatening to tear them apart forever. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the penthouse felt suffocating, heavy with secrets and half-truths. Elena Russo sat in a dimly lit corner of the living room, the baby cradled against her chest. Each tiny movement, each fragile heartbeat, seemed to echo in the room like a fragile defiance against the chaos surrounding them. Nikolai Varenne paced near the window, shadows slicing across his sharp features. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil inside him. For months, he had carried a secret, a truth so dangerous that revealing it could shatter the fragile bond he had fought so hard to protect. And now, with Elena's eyes upon him, searching for answers, he knew the moment had come. "Elena," he said finally, voice low, controlled, but threaded with tension. "There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you from the start." Her breath hitched. "I'm listening," she whispered, though her chest tightened with dread. Every instinct screamed caution. Every memory of betrayal, of abandonment surged back. He stopped pacing, his gray eyes locking onto hers. "The night I left you. The hospital. I didn't abandon you. I was forced to disappear. Your brother's men, and others in the underworld, they would have found you, hurt you, maybe even killed you. I made a choice, the hardest choice of my life. I left to protect you, to protect our child." Elena's lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, to reach for him, but a part of her still recoiled. "You call leaving me protection?" she asked, voice barely audible, shaking with rage and confusion. You left me to suffer alone. You let me believe you didn't care." He stepped closer, and for the first time his mask cracked. The gray of his eyes darkened, but the raw truth shone through. "I did care, more than I can ever explain. And it hurt me more than anything to watch you struggle alone. But I couldn't risk you. Couldn't risk the baby. That's why I disappeared. That's why I betrayed your trust." Tears welled in her eyes, a mixture of relief, anger, and disbelief. Her hands shook as she cradled the baby tighter. "All this time, I hated you. I hated you with everything I had. And you were fighting for us?" He nodded, stepping even closer, his presence dominating the room, yet strangely protective. "Yes, and I still am. I've never stopped. You, our child, that's my life now, my only reason to survive." Elena's heart ached. Every beat resonated with the pain of lost months, stolen moments, and the darkness of the underworld that had kept them apart. And yet, the man standing before her was the same man she had once loved, feared, and craved, the man who had haunted her dreams and nightmares alike. "Why now?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why tell me now?" He paused, as if weighing every word. "Because it's too late for secrets. Everything is coming to light, and if I don't tell you the truth, if I don't face the consequences with you, we won't survive the next storm. The danger is closer than ever. And your brother, he isn't finished. Neither is the enemy who orchestrated your hospital incident." Elena's mind spun. The betrayal she had felt, the fear, the anger. It all shifted into something more complex, a fragile understanding, a spark of hope, and the realization that their love, dark and twisted as it had been, was still the strongest force between them. Nikolai reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know it's hard to believe, but everything I did, every move I made was for you, for us, for our child." Her lips quivered, the storm of emotions inside her, resentment, longing, fear, and desire, collided violently. She wanted to hate him still, but her body, her heart, her instincts screamed otherwise. She wanted to forgive him, to believe, to surrender once more to the man who had once dominated her heart and soul. Before she could respond, a sudden sharp sound froze both of them, the unmistakable click of a weapon cocking somewhere in the apartment. Nikolai's body tensed instantly, every muscle primed for action. "Stay behind me," he commanded, voice a deadly whisper, "and don't move." Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. She obeyed, pressing the baby against her chest, feeling the fragile heartbeat against her own. She had survived betrayal, abandonment, and the chaos of the underworld, but the threat looming now was different, personal, immediate, lethal. The shadows shifted near the doorway, and a figure stepped into the light. Nikolai's gray eyes locked onto the intruder, someone they had never seen before, someone whose very presence spelled death. "You shouldn't have come here," Nikolai growled, gun raised. "This isn't your fight." The intruder smirked, cold and calculated, eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "Oh, it's not just my fight, Varen. It's everyone's. And the truth will destroy everything you've built. Especially her." Elena's breath caught. What truth?" she whispered, voice trembling. Nikolai's jaw clenched. The danger, the secrets, and the past they had both tried to escape collided in that moment. He stepped forward, shielding Elena and their child, gray eyes blazing with lethal determination. The intruder raised a weapon, intent clear, deadly. Nikolai's finger tightened on the trigger, every instinct honed for this moment, every ounce of his being prepared to protect the woman he had once abandoned and now loved with a ferocity that could destroy worlds. The shot rang out, echoing through the apartment. Elena's scream filled the air. The intruder faltered. But a second figure appeared from the shadows behind them. Nikolai's eyes widened in horror. The truth had arrived, and it was more dangerous than either of them could have imagined. The penthouse, once a haven, had transformed into a battlefield. Shadows stretched across the walls, distorted by the flickering lights and the relentless drizzle tapping against the glass. Every object seemed a potential weapon. Every corner could hide a threat. Nikolai Varin stood near the entrance, pistol raised, senses razor-sharp, a predator aware that every second could mean life or death. Elena clutched their child close, heart hammering. The weight of the baby's fragile life pressed against her chest, reminding her why she had survived every betrayal, every storm, and every fear. But now, this was different. The enemy was here, and the stakes were higher than ever. The first intruder lunged from the shadows, fast, precise. Nikolai's reflexes were deadly, moving fluidly, striking before the attacker could even register his motion. The gun discharged, echoing like thunder, the figure collapsing into the room with a muted crash. Elena gasped, instinctively raising the baby higher. She had been close enough to see the intent in that shadowed figure's eyes, cold, merciless, and determined to destroy everything she held dear. Another attacker appeared, almost impossibly fast, moving from the balcony access. Nikolai pivoted, swinging with the strength of a man who had survived wars, fist connecting with bone, striking the next threat down before they could react. The air was thick with tension, the penthouse now a storm of chaos, violence, and fear. Rain continued to lash the windows, amplifying the sense of relentless danger. Every heartbeat, every breath, seemed amplified, stretched to its limit. Elena's mind raced. She wanted to run, to hide, to escape the nightmare, but her legs refused. Survival demanded she stay close to Nikolai, the only man capable of defending her and their child. Her trust wavered, fragile as it was, but she had learned the truth. He fought with a ferocity she had never known, and he would never let harm come to them. A muffled sound behind the couch drew their attention. Another figure moved silently, deliberately, a shadow among shadows. Nikolai's eyes narrowed, gun trained, muscles coiled like a spring ready to strike. Elena's fingers trembled against the baby, but she didn't flinch. The dark romance of their past surged through her. The fear, the attraction, the unrelenting passion that had always defined their connection. She had loved him through danger, through betrayal, through nights she would never forget. And now, watching him fight, she realized that love was not a choice. It was a necessity. The intruder made a move, and Nikolai fired. A shot rang out, precise, devastating. The figure faltered, giving him just enough time to advance. But then, another shadow appeared, faster than human, aiming directly at Elena. She screamed, frozen, heart pounding. Nikolai's reflexes kicked in instinctively. He dove, body shielding hers, pistol firing in rapid succession. The intruder faltered, staggering back, but the threat wasn't over. Blood sprayed, glass shattered, the room filling with the acrid smell of gunpowder and fear. Every movement, every strike was deliberate, controlled, lethal. Nikolai didn't just fight. He orchestrated the chaos with deadly precision, a symphony of violence that both terrified and mesmerized. Elena's mind flashed to the months of betrayal, the heartbreak, the months he had disappeared. But now, seeing him in this moment, she understood. His absence had been strategy. His distance a shield, and every dark action he had taken had been to protect them. Another intruder burst through the balcony, throwing a chair toward them. Nikolai caught it effortlessly, spinning it in a brutal arc to strike down the attacker. The baby stirred, crying, a fragile heartbeat amid chaos. Elena's chest ached as she soothed them, realizing the depth of what they were facing. Time seemed elastic. Every second stretched, each movement magnified. Nikolai moved with grace and lethal intent, shadows and bullets dancing around him. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for their family, for the fragile life Elena carried, for the bond they had rebuilt despite betrayal and chaos. Elena looked at him, her pulse sinking with his relentless movements. This was the man she had once hated, once feared, once loved beyond reason. And now, seeing him in this violent, protective frenzy, she realized she had never stopped loving him. But then, a sudden chilling realization froze her blood. From the corner of the room, a silhouette emerged, darker, more menacing than the others. They carried a weapon she recognized, the same one that had threatened her before. Nikolai froze mid-strike, sensing the presence before he could fully register it. Gray eyes narrowed. Every instinct screamed danger. Every movement slowed, calculated. The intruder wasn't just a threat. They were personal. "Elena." Nikolai's voice was a dangerous growl. "Move back, now." She obeyed, holding the baby tightly, heart hammering. But she could feel it, the tension, the inevitability. This wasn't just another attack. This was the climax. The final piece of the chaos that had haunted them since the beginning. The intruder stepped forward, fully into the light, revealing a face that made Elena's stomach drop. Recognition, fear, and disbelief collided in a violent shockwave. Nikolai's jaw tightened, muscles coiled like steel springs. "You," he whispered, voice low, deadly. "You've been behind all of this." The intruder smirked, cold, unflinching. "You finally figured it out, Varin. But it's too late. She's mine now, and nothing will save you." Elena's breath caught. She felt the baby kick violently, the fragile heartbeat thrumming against her chest like a warning. She looked at Nikolai, seeing not just the Mafia boss, the predator, the man who had betrayed and protected her, but the man who would stop at nothing to save them. Nikolai's hand tightened around the pistol. His eyes burned with fury, determination, and a lethal promise. "No one touches her. No one. Not tonight. Not ever." The intruder advanced, steps deliberate, confident, a predator closing in on its prey. Nikolai shifted, body coiled, ready to strike, ready to unleash every ounce of lethal skill he possessed. Rain pounded the windows harder, thunder rolling through the city like a drumbeat of war. The penthouse trembled with tension, every shadow a potential threat, every heartbeat a countdown. The intruder lunged. Nikolai fired. Elena screamed, the baby's cry piercing the storm outside. But before the bullet hit its mark, another shadow appeared from behind Nikolai, faster than either could react. He turned just in time to see a knife glint, aimed straight at Elena. The penthouse lay in ruin. Glass glittered like shards of a shattered world across the marble floors. Furniture was overturned, walls scorched, echoes of violence lingering like ghosts. And yet, in the center of the chaos, Nikolai Varenne and Elena Russo stood together, holding their child as though the fragile life in their arms was the only reality that mattered. Nikolai's gray eyes scanned the room, calculating, alert, every muscle still taut from the fight. He had fought monsters, enemies, and shadows before, but nothing had been as terrifying as the thought of losing Elena, of failing the life they had created together. His body ached, his mind reeled, yet the fire of protection, obsession, and love burned brighter than ever. Elena clutched their child, chest heaving. Her mind struggled to catch up with reality. Months of fear, betrayal, abandonment. And darkness had led to this moment. She had hated him, feared him, cursed him. Yet here he was, every lethal instinct focused on shielding them. She realized with a clarity sharpened by danger and survival that love and fear had always been intertwined with Nikolai. She had never stopped loving him. He approached slowly, each step deliberate, magnetic. "Are you both unharmed?" he asked, voice low, controlled, but carrying the weight of emotion he rarely allowed himself to show. Elena's lips trembled. We're alive. But it's not over. They'll come back. Her voice faltered as she looked into his eyes, gray storm clouds softening with relief and unspoken longing. He knelt beside her, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. "Let them try," he said, tone deadly. "Nothing will touch you again. I won't allow it. Not her. Not our child. Not you." Her eyes filled with tears, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and deep-seated desire. "Nikolai," she whispered, voice catching. I don't know how to forgive you, but I can't deny. I can't stop loving you." He closed the distance, placing a hand on her cheek, thumb brushing away tears. The intensity of his gaze was a promise, a warning and a plea all at once. "Elena, I've never stopped loving you. I never will. Every decision, every risk, every dark move I made, it was for this, for us, for our child." The storm outside had passed, leaving only the soft patter of rain against the glass. The city seemed quieter, holding its breath, as though even the world recognized the fragile calm after the storm of chaos and violence. Elena reached up, hesitating, then allowed herself to touch his face, tracing the angles she had memorized through memories of love and fear. "You could have destroyed us," she murmured, "but you saved us instead." Nikolai's jaw tightened, gray eyes burning. "I destroyed what needed destroying," he admitted, "and I'll continue to fight for what matters most. You and the baby. You're my life." She leaned into him, tears falling freely now, relief and love flooding every nerve. "Then we fight together," she whispered, voice firm, strong yet tender. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The baby stirred in her arms, small hands reaching for the man who had been both nightmare and protector. Nikolai smiled, the first genuine soft smile she had seen in months. He reached down, brushing his hand against the tiny fingers, feeling the heartbeat of the life they had fought so hard to protect. But even in this moment of fragile calm, the underworld was never far. A sound from the street below made Nikolai stiffen instinctively. The echo of a motorcycle engine, tires cutting through wet pavement, shadows moving with intent. He stood, protective, primal instinct returning. Elena looked up at him, sensing the shift. "It's never truly over," she said softly. "No," he admitted, "but we've survived this far. We'll survive further, together." They embraced, a slow, almost forbidden closeness, the dark romance of their past blending with the hope of a future. The weight of betrayal, abandonment, and violence melted slightly in that moment, replaced by raw emotion, desire, and the fierce determination to protect what they had earned. The city lights shimmered through the broken glass of the windows, casting reflections that danced across their faces like ghosts of battles fought and won. Nikolai's lips brushed hers, gentle yet demanding, a promise of devotion and dominance intertwined. Elena responded, her body and heart surrendering to the man who had both terrified and captivated her. Hours passed in a suspended silence, the world outside oblivious to the fragile peace inside. For the first time since the wedding, Elena allowed herself to breathe fully, to relax, to imagine a life where their love and their child were safe. Nikolai rested his head against hers, whispering promises, soft and deadly all at once. "No one will ever hurt you again," he said. "I swear it." She closed her eyes, letting the truth of his words sink in. The slow burn of passion, the dark romance, the betrayal, the fear, and now the redemption, all fused into a quiet, powerful intimacy. She realized that their story was not one of simple love, but of survival, trust rebuilt, and an intensity that few could withstand. The baby yawned, tiny hands stretching toward them, a fragile, perfect symbol of hope amid chaos. Nikolai kissed the child's forehead, then Elena's, a connection sealing the past, present, and future. But even in this moment of redemption, the world was never entirely safe. Outside, shadows moved, threats lingering just beyond reach. Nikolai's instincts remained sharp, senses attuned to danger he refused to ignore. A faint vibration echoed from his coat pocket. He reached slowly, retrieving a message from an unknown number. His eyes narrowed as he read it, lips tightening. Elena looked at him, concerned. "What is it?" He didn't answer immediately. His gray eyes darkened, storm clouds returning. "It's a warning," he said finally. "The calm is temporary. The storm isn't finished, and there are truths you're not ready for yet." She swallowed hard, heart racing. "We survived everything. How can there be more?" Nikolai's expression was unreadable, deadly, and intense. Because in our world there is always more, and the real danger is only beginning. The message blinked ominously on his phone. Elena's eyes widened in fear. Nikolai's grip on her hand tightened. Outside, a black SUV slowed at the curb, engine idling, shadows shifting inside. The storm had returned, and this time it threatened to take everything they had fought for.